What's up, NFL fans? Welcome to a Tuesday episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. Kevin Smith here on the Fans First Sports Network, bringing you this show 5 days a week. Every Monday through Friday mornings, the Call Sheet Daily drops. Different topics on Mondays and Tuesdays, Whiteboard Wednesday show, State of the Franchise, profiling different NFL teams on Thursday, Hot Route, great conversations about sports and life with Pez's Picks on Friday. A lot of wonderful stuff going on this program. Today, we're going to look at a really interesting list that came out recently, published by ESPN, compiled after they surveyed 100 NFL executives, coaches, and scouts. And that list ranks the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. And for me, the big takeaway from that list is that Jalen Hurts continues to be underappreciated. And I don't want to get dramatic and say disrespected. I know respect is a big concept in the social media world. But it does feel as though his value is being greatly underrated. And I want to talk about why that is. We're going to dive into that list in a minute. Before I get to that, though, let me talk up tomorrow's show. Tomorrow, I mentioned, we usually do on Wednesdays, Whiteboard Wednesday, which is a big scheme show. We break down the X's and the O's of the game. I have another coach on, and we really, dive in for those of you who are football junkies. I will have a coach on tomorrow, but we're not really doing a Whiteboard Wednesday show. Tomorrow, I am privileged as my guest to have on two-time NFL Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski, head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And Coach Stefanski and I will weigh in on training camp, which is, he's headed to training camp next week with the Browns. The entire league is headed to training camp. And really what we're talking about is this. The title of tomorrow's show is, For an NFL Head Coach, the Season Never Ends. And we're really looking at how training camp is the culmination of a long process of preparation. It's not the beginning of the work for coaches. It's in many ways, it's the product of all the work you've put in to get your team to this point. Assemble your new team, and now you're going to obviously hone it. But there's so much work that goes into an off season. And we're going to talk about all that stuff. He's a phenomenal interview, incredibly insightful, intelligent individual. And join me tomorrow, man. It's going to be a blast with Coach Stefanski of the Browns. All right, on to today. The top 10 quarterback list as compiled by ESPN after an interview of 100 NFL executives, coaches, and scouts. First of all, you do kind of sit up and pay attention when you see that this is the group that was surveyed here. I mean, this is not a fan survey. This is not just a pure player survey where sometimes I think the players, they vote for their buddies. They vote for the guys they played with in college. Maybe they train with in the off season, or they vote against division rivals, guys that they don't like. I think this has probably got a little more objectivity to it. But I take issue, serious issue, with where Jalen Hurts has been ranked. Okay, let's go through the list. Number 1 overall, they have Patrick Mahomes. No argument there. Number 2 overall, Josh Allen. Number 3, Joe Burrow. Number 4, Lamar Jackson. I think you can make an extremely credible argument that those are the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. And you can probably shuffle around the order if you want. If you want to argue one or the other is number 1, any of them could be 2, 3, or 4. Putting Mahomes number 1 makes a lot of sense because obviously he's had the postseason success that those others have not. Neither Allen nor Burrow nor Jackson have won a Super Bowl. Burrow's the only other one to have been there. So obviously Mahomes has been the best of that group on the biggest stage. But I think that there's a little bit of a separation. Those 4 guys are probably the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And then there's probably a separation between the rest. Here's where I have a problem. For me, the next guy on the list, number 5, is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and we'll get to why in a minute. But the list here has Jaden Daniels at number 5. Phenomenal rookie season for Jaden Daniels. Phenomenal. But how do you put him at number 5 after 1 year? How do you not need to see him do it again before you say he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? He's one of the 5 best guys on the planet at what he does after a 1-year sample size. I have a huge issue with that. Again, love Jaden Daniels. A year from now, I won't be shocked at all if he remains a top 5 quarterback. But when you look at what happened with CJ Stroud in Houston, who had a monster rookie year, won the Rookie of the Year award, and was immediately being talked up as a guy who was going to be an elite quarterback in the league. Well, he didn't have a bad year last year, but it wasn't an elite year. He kind of regressed a little bit. The NFL caught up to him. I think in Houston, maybe they think that the scheme, which was very conservative his rookie year, they did a lot to protect him as a rookie. They max protected. They moved the pocket a lot. They didn't ask him to make risky throws down the middle of the field. And I think that strategy, while it was smart for CJ Stroud as a rookie, wasn't able to be successful again in his second year. Too conservative. NFL defenses caught up to what the Texans were doing. And as a result, Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, who 2 years ago people were talking about as a potential head coaching candidate, lost his job. Houston moved on from him because they just didn't think that he did enough to evolve the offense and CJ Stroud in it. So I think CJ Stroud may be a little bit of a cautionary tale for Jaden Daniels, right? Give it a year, man. Let that bottle of wine breathe a little bit, man, before we declare it the best thing that we've ever tasted. Number 6 on the list, Matthew Stafford. No problem with that. I think Matthew Stafford's a guy who has been underrated at times throughout his career. All those years in Detroit, toiling away in obscurity and misery. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but my God, he was a quarterback for an 0-16 team, for a 1-15 team, for a 2-14 team. And how do you say like a guy like that is underrated when his team is playing so miserably? Well, obviously we saw the difference when he got traded to the Rams, and now suddenly he had a supporting cast and he went and won a Super Bowl. And I think people forget the Rams were sneakily close. Sneakily. Is that a word? The Rams were really close to knocking off the Eagles in the playoffs last year. Down by 6 in the waning moments with the ball inside Philly's 20. A couple monster plays from Jalen Carter saved that game for Philadelphia. Stafford almost pulled a monstrous upset of the Eagles in last year's playoffs. No issues at all with Matthew Stafford as a top 6 quarterback. Number 7, Justin Herbert. I got a problem there. Justin Herbert. You hear people say it all the time. If you were going to chisel a quarterback out of a block of granite, your product would probably look an awful lot like Justin Herbert. 6'6", got the good hair. He's got the quarterback hair. Carries himself like a quarterback. Big arm. Mobile. Athletic. Strong. Good leader, etc. Guy's put up some great numbers throughout his career. There's just one problem, man. They've never won anything. The Chargers have not won anything. Justin Herbert's never won a playoff game. How do you put a guy who's never won a playoff game ahead of some of the names that are about to follow? I don't understand. I mean, actually, I do understand, and I'll get to what it is in a minute. But I have a very tough time putting Justin Herbert among the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, even though he's got all the measurables that says he should be. If there's one thing that quarterbacks are judged on, fairly or not so, that players at other positions are not, it's wins and losses. And it's how you perform in big games. And Justin Herbert right now just hasn't done it. He hasn't done it. So I don't know how you can put him up there. Number 8, Jared Goff. Another guy whose career took a really interesting turn as a result of that big trade between the Lions and the Rams. I mean, here's a guy who gets to a Super Bowl with the Rams, and yet Sean McVay, in the aftermath of that, doesn't believe he's the guy. Doesn't believe he's the guy that can get the most out of Sean McVay's offense. And so he makes a risky move and sends him to Detroit. And they bring in Stafford and they win a Super Bowl. But it's not like Jared Goff now suddenly goes to Detroit and suffers the same fate as Matthew Stafford did. Instead, under Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the Detroit Lions have a revival. The last couple of years, they go from 3-13 when that trade is made. 3-13 the first year, 3-13-1 to be exact, to 9-8, to 12-5, to 15-2, and Jared Goff has piloted that renaissance as their quarterback, and he is playing like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And now we get to Jalen Hurts, number 9 on this list. Number 9, Jalen Hurts, number 9, Baker Mayfield, number 10. And Baker Mayfield, I don't really have an issue with that. You could probably make a case for a bunch of quarterbacks in that number 10 spot. Maybe you could argue Stroud over Mayfield or Prescott over Mayfield. Some people might argue Brock Purdy over Baker Mayfield. But if you want to argue Baker Mayfield, I got no issue with that. But Jalen Hurts at number 9. I mean, the guy just won the Super Bowl. He was the MVP of the Super Bowl. And I know that that's not the end-all, be-all in how we rank people, but it matters. Jalen Hurts, 26 years old. He's been to 2 Super Bowls already. He's won 1. In both of those Super Bowls, he faced the Kansas City Chiefs, whose recent run, if you think about the Chiefs in their first couple of Super Bowl runs, they were led by the offense. But in their recent couple of Super Bowls, it's the defense that has carried them. They have an elite defense, and Jalen Hurts has shredded that defense in both of those Super Bowls. Philly scored 35 and 40 in their 2 Super Bowl appearances against the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Hurts has a career record as a starting quarterback of 46 and 20. That is a 70% winning percentage. Only Mahomes at 79% and Lamar Jackson at 74% are better of these quarterbacks on the top 10 list. His touchdown to interception ratio is 2.5 to 1. Extremely solid. I mean, there's a couple guys that have a better one. And if you want to knock Jalen Hurts on something, you could knock him on the fact that he throws too many interceptions at times. 2 years ago, 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. That's not great. You want to knock him, he throws too many picks at times. But 2.5 to 1 touchdowns to interceptions over your career is respectable. 7.6 yards per attempt over his career. Jackson and Mahomes both average 7.8. They're a little bit better. Burrow is 7.5. Josh Allen is 7.4. They're a little bit worse. He's right in the middle of that group when it comes to yards per attempt. What about his ability to run the football? One of his most attractive attributes. Jalen Hurts is one of only 2 quarterbacks in the NFL, along with Lamar Jackson, to have 600 or more rushing yards in each of the last 4 seasons. Josh Allen hasn't done that. I think for me, it comes down to this. If I could pick one of these quarterbacks to have for one game, I have to win one big game. Call it the Super Bowl if you want, but it could be any big game. I need to win this game to get into the playoffs. I need to win this game to get to the Super Bowl. Whatever it is, I need to win a game. And I can pick whatever quarterback I want. Where are you picking Jalen Hurts on this list? See, for me, when you're going to make a list of rankings at the quarterback position, that's the question that matters the most. Are you picking Baker Mayfield are you picking Jared Goff or Justin Herbert or Jaden Daniels or even Lamar Jackson over Jalen Hurts? I'm not picking Lamar Jackson over Jalen Hurts. Lamar Jackson has been amazing in the regular season, but his playoff resume is not good. He has a losing record as a playoff quarterback, and his statistics in the playoffs as compared to the regular season are significantly worse. The only quarterbacks I would think about taking over Jalen Hurts with one game I need that one game, are Mahomes and Allen. And again, Hurts has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both Super Bowls between Kansas City and Philadelphia. So would I even take Mahomes over Hurts? I don't know. He is absolutely in the top 3, if that is your question. But this is not new, man. This is not new. Jalen Hurts has been facing this disrespect or this, again, I don't know, that feels too dramatic. But the doubters have been there his whole life. Look at his college career. At Alabama back in 2016, as a freshman, he's the SEC Player of the Year as a freshman. As a sophomore, he leads Alabama to a 12-1 record in the national title game, but he's not playing particularly well in that title game. Bama's losing at halftime, and Nick Saban makes the gutsy move of benching him for Tua Tagovailoa. And Tua rallies Bama to the national title. And as a result, Tua becomes Bama's starter the next year. So as a junior, Jalen Hurts sits. But what does he do when he sits? He is a good soldier. He plays some, they get him, he plays a little bit, but it's Tua's job. And Jalen Hurts is a mentor to Tua. Tua has talked about it. He said, Jalen Hurts was phenomenal to me. He worked hard. He pushed me. He helped me. He wasn't passive aggressive about it. He wasn't bitter about it. He didn't sulk. But he realized Tua's going to be the guy. And so as a senior, Jalen Hurts transfers to Oklahoma, where he then leads the Sooners to the national playoffs. He's number 2 in the Heisman voting. And I think the most telling thing about who Jalen Hurts is, when he transferred to Oklahoma, within 2 weeks of his arrival and him beginning to work out with the Sooners program, they voted him a team captain. What does that tell you? Within 2 weeks. That's how impressive he was when he showed up. That's what a leader Jalen Hurts was. But still, he fell in the draft. He fell to number 53 overall. I wrote an article back for the old Behind the Steel Curtain when I was working for Behind the Steel Curtain about how I wanted the Steelers to draft Jalen Hurts because he was a winner. He was a winner and a high character individual. And you can go a long way with a guy like that as your quarterback. But Philly got him. And he's taken him to 2 Super Bowls. And he's won one. Why though? Why is he undervalued? I think it's a couple of things. And I mentioned this with Justin Herbert, and I think it applies for Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert passes the eye test. Again, he's 6'6", 225 pounds, sculpted at, like at a quarterback, he's a quarterback dream. Well, Jalen Hurts is 6'1", 216. He looks more like a running back. Thick legs, big in the butt, big hips, strong as an ox. I mean, he absolutely looks like a guy who could be your starting tailback. He's been dogged by criticisms. Can't play from the pocket. He's inaccurate. The inaccuracy thing kills me. His career completion percentage is 65%. How are you going to call him inaccurate? I think a big thing, though, is this. He's quiet. He's introspective. He's not flashy. He's not a human highlight reel. He doesn't give you great sound bites. He is as measured and as level a personality as you'll ever see. After the Super Bowl, when they won the Super Bowl, there's a great photograph of him sitting on the floor in the Eagles locker room with a cigar in his mouth, just hugging the Super Bowl trophy by himself. You could tell it meant that much to him. But he wasn't out there, shaking champagne up on everybody and running around and chest bumping. It's not his personality. And I think that people, I don't want to say they hold that against him, but they like the guys who are a little flashier and who give you the great soundbite and who know every reporter's name in the room and dap everybody up. Long story short, he doesn't pass the eye test. Oh, and he also gets penalized because Philly's too good. And I think that's a big part of it too. I think a lot of people look at Jalen Hurts and they say, you could plug in just about any quarterback and they would have success in Philly because Philly's that good. And yeah, Philly's that good, but aren't some of these other teams really good as well? Don't we always talk about the Chargers as an unbelievably talented team that never seems to reach its potential? Don't we always talk about the Ravens as a team that should be in the Super Bowl, but Lamar Jackson can't get them there? Don't we? Why hasn't Josh Allen gotten the Bills to the Super Bowl yet? The Bills are an extremely talented team. Yeah, the Eagles are good. But you know why they're good? In part because they have Jalen Hurts as their quarterback. So it's interesting. It's interesting how certain players just don't get the love. In this case, even, kind of within the football world, that, in my estimation, they should. And I think Jalen Hurts is a great case study in that. All right, that's our show here for Tuesday. Join me tomorrow. Again, Coach Stefanski on the program. Can't tell you how excited I am. Incredibly introspective stuff. I mean, if you want to peek behind the curtain and see how the NFL really works from a coaching perspective and everything that goes into preparing for a season, tune in tomorrow. You're going to learn so much just from listening to Coach. So I really hope you'll join me. Until then, have a great day, everybody.